So President Trump nominated...
Welcome back. That was the scene last night at Congressman Jason Chaffetz's town hall in a Salt Lake City suburb. And he's not the only Republican facing a tough crowd these days. Congresswoman Diane Black of Tennessee was grilled by constituents about repealing the Affordable Care Act last night. Here's what happened when she left that town hall. In Georgia, activists packed an office hours event for 3 Republicans, Senators Perdue and Isaacson and Congresswoman Jody Hice. But only their aides were there, and the crowd was not happy about that. Shame, 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 shame. And in Cincinnati, today, protesters gathered outside a luncheon where Senator Rob Portman was set to speak.
I'm a constituent too! Listen to me!
He should have said no! He should have said no!
But Portman never made it to that event. His spokesman said he was stuck in D.C. because of those Senate votes that we told you about. As we've been saying, these protests at congressional events feel a lot like the Tea Party ones we saw in August of 2009. But that was August. These are coming a lot faster and appear to be a lot fiercer than those were back in 2009. Republican Congressman Tom McClintock was confronted by protesters at his town hall last week. He joins me now. Congressman McClintock, thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
So we all saw the video. I think it was on a Saturday, and it was making the rounds on social media. Let me ask you this. A week later, or nearly a week later, what did you learn from that episode? What did you learn about sort of where your district is, where the country is, and what this all means?
Well, I think there are a lot of people that are very upset that Donald Trump was elected president because they disagree with him very vigorously. I try to remind them there were many Americans who disagreed just as vigorously with Barack Obama. Interestingly, they're not mad at Donald Trump because he's broken any campaign promises. They're mad at him because he's keeping all of his campaign promises. And, of course, that's what the election was about. In a real sense, that's what the last 4 elections have been about.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel a different pressure in responding to your constituents, even though while you carried your district very comfortably, Donald Trump carried it with a little less vote, but he carried your district? But California in general went so decisively blue. Does that make you think, well, maybe I should moderate my stance on X or Y? How much of that impacts you?
Well, I think it's a reminder that we're ultimately going to be judged on the outcome of the policies that we enact. You know, there's no way ultimately that you can spin the economy or spin the healthcare system. Everybody has an up-close and personal experience with it. They know what's going on in their own lives. And any politician or pundit trying to convince them otherwise is going to look rather foolish. So what it means is we've got to deliver. I think that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats made a big mistake in imposing Obamacare without thinking through very carefully how it would affect the vast majority of Americans. That's why Nancy Pelosi is no longer Speaker, and that's why Donald Trump, not Hillary Clinton, is president. We need to be just, we need to take that example and be very careful that the policies that we provide actually mean an improvement in both the economy and the healthcare system for the vast majority of Americans.
Well, let me focus on healthcare a minute, because I think what is interesting is how it does seem as if that is, at least at the town halls that we've seen so far, that is the motivator, right? It is constituents that are worried about the changes in the healthcare law, which is, frankly, what we saw 8 years ago in 2009. In the reverse, it was constituents, is more from a conservative point of view, concerned about the changes that were coming. Healthcare is a very personal thing.
Right.
How is that going to impact how the speed with which you'd like to see a change in the healthcare system? We're having this whole debate. How fast do you repeal, replace, repair, et cetera? Where are you on this?
Well, as soon as we can, but be sure that we're right, because again, we're going to be judged on the outcome of these policies. In the last 4 elections, this has been one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent issue before the American people, and it has produced a profound political realignment toward the Republicans. Now we're going to be judged by the policies that we enact, and we've just got to get it right.
What is getting it right to you? What are some things that you're worried may go in the wrong direction?
Well, the ultimate vision for health care that the Republicans put forth in these elections is to assure a very wide selection of health plans, restore the freedom of individual families to shop around for the best policy that best meets their needs, and then to use the tax credits we currently lavish on corporations to impose a plan for their employees, give those same tax advantages to the employees themselves so they can select a plan not only that best meets their needs, but they can own, that they can take from job to job, and that they can fire if it no longer serves their needs. So a wide range of choices and within the reach of families.
And does it have to cover pre-existing conditions in your mind, and have to at least allow families to keep their children on all the way up to the age of 26?
Well, we have to understand the problem with pre-existing conditions. This was brought home to me years ago when a fellow left his job, therefore lost his employer health plan, went into the private sector to find one, couldn't because he had a pre-existing condition, bursitis. He says, I don't care about the bursitis, that's just a nuisance. Write me a plan that covers everything else and I'll take care of the bursitis myself. And the response was, we'd love to write you such a plan, but we can't. It's against the law. You know, if you allow the freedom so that people can exempt their nuisances and separate those out from the things that could actually bankrupt or kill them, now you've reduced that pool to a much more manageable level, and then the same kind of assigned risk pools that we currently use, for example, for auto insurance, could be used for that purpose.
But then how do you not punish the person that has the pre-existing condition in a high-risk pool? Why punish them with a higher insurance rate just because of their DNA?
Well, insurance covers risk. It doesn't cover certainty. Why is it that a health plan can only charge you 1% of the cost of a serious illness? It's because you only have a 1% chance of contracting that illness. If you're at 100%, that's not risk, that's certainty. The assigned risk pools spread that burden across the consumer base. They're very successful in assuring that those who are otherwise can't get insurance, for example, for automobiles, still have access to that market.
Right, but it's hard to make that comparison. The people that can't get a high-risk auto insurance, it's because they're bad drivers, or they've had, when you're talking about health and pre-existing conditions, pre-existing can come, you're born with an ailment. I mean, that's what I mean, is like, why penalize, why create a similar system? In insurance, you're paying your own penalty for being a bad driver.
Yeah, well, Chuck, again, I agree with you. What I'm saying is that the assigned risk pool can spread that cost, that risk, across a very wide base to assure that those who do have serious pre-existing conditions can obtain the insurance that they need. But
you wouldn't have those risk pools include healthy people? Include people without pre-existing conditions?
Well, no, the whole idea of a risk pool is to spread that cost across the overall consumer base.
Okay, so, but there has been some talk that, no, you put people with pre-existing conditions in a high-risk pool system, separating them out from the general population. You're not suggesting that?
Well, what it does is to then give them the broad subsidies that they need to be sure that their health insurance is still within their financial reach. And again, you boil that problem down first, in my view, by assuring that those who have nuisances like bursitis can still get insurance and aren't being blocked because of that nuisance affliction. If you're over 45, as I am, long way over 45, everybody's got some pre-existing condition.
All right. One last question. Advice to fellow members of Congress who are ducking town halls. I'm sure you didn't have a lot of fun at some of these town halls, but you did it. Some of your colleagues aren't doing it. What would you tell them?
Well, be careful because emotions are running very, very high. I've done over 100 town hall meetings over the entire span of the Tea Party movement and Occupy Wall Street. This was the first time that a police department determined that I needed an armed escort to safely leave the venue. So I'd urge them to be very careful. On the other hand, I find town halls to be very, very important in hearing the concerns of constituents. I intend to continue to do them. It's an important, part of that interaction between a representative and a constituency.
All right. Congressman Tom McClintock, Republican from California. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your views, sir.
Chuck, thanks for having me.
You got it.